What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Brace podcast. Angelo and I are really excited to be here and chat about balancing family life with building a career in professional sports. Obviously, we're coming from a professional soccer background, but this will be relevant, I think, to most athletic endeavors as I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, especially as you're trying to build yourself into a professional sports person. So, maybe for viewers out there, let's give, why don't you go first and run us through your relationship with your family, friends, and romantic relationships as you've moved through the levels of your soccer career.
Yeah. So I've got two sisters, mom and a dad. Um, and I think just kind of to make it like a shorter answer, my main thing is like over time, when you have certain commitments that you know are going to take more time, you just have to realize that there's probably going to be a little bit less time for your friends, um, or like social stuff. So I think now is to the point where it's like I know what I want to do, soccer, business stuff. I have my priorities as well, and then that's kind of where like other stuff will come kind of after. And it's not to say like I don't block out time for that as well or look to incorporate the two of them. But I think you just kind of have to know what your priorities are and then go that way. I've had a girlfriend, been dating my girlfriend Ashley for 3 years, and that's definitely been like a challenge as well in terms of like trying to figure out how to put my soccer, my career first, as well as all these other business things I'm trying to do, as well as like maintaining a good relationship with her as well. But she's been incredibly supportive and she's an athlete herself, so she understands the time commitment stuff. So yeah, what about yourself, Noah?
For me, two younger siblings as well. Obviously, mom and dad, and then have had a series of relationships throughout my soccer career. Uh, Three-quarters of them have failed because of soccer and because of my unwillingness to let soccer go. Because eventually it got to a conversation around, well, it's either me or soccer because you're traveling so much and all this other stuff. And at the time, I was not willing to make that sacrifice. And I think it comes back to your comment about priorities is soccer was my priority over family stuff, often over definitely over friends and over relationships. Now, some of that is meeting the right person. Now, I've been married now for a couple of years, and my wife is extraordinarily supportive of everything. She moved countries to, come with me to play. And through a surgery and stuff that I had, I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, but the broken foot and everything. And, she's been incredible throughout that process, but that's a very, very, very unique situation. And I think a lot of people, especially when you're younger, you're 16, 17, 18 years old and you're trying to balance those two things. It can get really difficult.
100%. 100%. How did that situation go when you and your wife like talked about moving countries? Was because you were in Australia and then she came back with you when you joined Michigan? Is that
Yep.
the first time you guys moved together? Yeah. So what did that look like?
So we had to move back to Seattle first because I had to get surgery. And so we lived in Seattle for almost a year and a bit, year and some change for when I got, or actually just under a year, I should say, while I got surgery and rehabbed and everything. And then we moved together to Michigan and then over to New York to Flower City. And um, it's a transition for sure. I think part of the reason we are now in Australia is because she and I value very different things. And I've realized, now I'm in a phase of my life and with the content and with everything else that it makes sense to be in a place that she finds really fantastic and she's around her friends and family. But a couple of years ago, that wasn't the case because I was like, I'm going to go do this thing, whether you want me to or not. And I think that's a really tough thing to say, especially to somebody who you consider like the love of your life. And you know, relative to romantic relationships, obviously it's different with family, who you're like, guys, this is my priority, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, and they're like, cool, we love you, we support you, see you later. That's a very different thing. And so I think from a, you know, a family perspective, it can be tough, but I think the romantic side of it can be really nerve-wracking when you have to have those conversations.
Yeah,
Did you
100%.
find with traveling to, because obviously Ashley's not in uh Australia with you, nor was she in New York with you.
No.
So what were those kind of conversations like? How do you structure them? Where's your head at with, you know, are you even considering her point of view on stuff? Like there's no wrong answer here, obviously, but like kind of how does that go for you guys?
Yeah, well, for New York, she's finishing up her degree still, so like we kind of knew there was going to be a date where we would end up stop being long distance because we met when we were playing. I was playing for the Timbers 23s, and then she's from Portland originally, so that's how that's where we met. And we kind of knew there was going to be a time when we were both out of college, and then we would eventually like start in the same place together. But for both USL 2 teams, so for Ballard, when I played for Ballard, she came and moved to Seattle for the summer, which was an awesome experience. And then when I moved to New York in her summer, she came to Rochester, and she's planning on coming to Australia June 26th. So so far it's been so far it's been kind of like she's been really supportive of where I've had different opportunities. Um, as you know, like you don't have control over where you get signed a lot of the time. Like you can't be like, I want to go to Miami and live there. When you get to a certain level, yeah, you can do that. And obviously, if there was a team, there are teams in Miami that are like pro or near Miami that I could be like, I want to go there, but it's not necessarily the right career move. Um, so yeah, I think for us, it's just about finding a balance between I obviously want to do the best thing for my career, um, but it also can get a little difficult as well when you have to also take into consideration she's just made a group of friends, she's just gotten settled in, and then you're moving. And now that I'm in Australia, that market's over in Asia as well, which can be difficult as well when people don't speak the language. But I think another thing is just taking it one step at a time, because right now I'm in Australia. I love Australia. I love my team, and I would love to stay in Australia too. So it's just I've had to turn it into more like, what do I feel like I need to do for my career, and
Hmm.
like where do I need to go, versus like where can we both find a place that's gonna fit best for both of us as well. Um, but she's been very supportive, and I think she understands that as well. Like if I have an opportunity come up somewhere else, better division, better money, she'd be willing to come, which I'm really, really lucky about.
100%. Do you think that's a product of finding the right person, or do you think that's a product of just who she is as a person?
Yeah, I think it's about finding the right person for sure, because I think it's pretty rare to find somebody that'd be willing to do that for you. So for me, it's that. And then also, she also wants to travel, wants to see different parts of the world. Um, but it's a lot easier said than done, because like if you're constantly getting put in these new environments every year, there's not really that much stability
Yeah.
um, in, professional, semi-professional soccer. So you kind of just have to, because there's a certain point where it's like you're always thinking about the next move, like where can I go where I can like stay there maybe a little bit longer, or where this is going to progress my career. But I've tried to get to the point where I'm kind of, it is completely out of my control in some respects. So how can I let that go, and then when the opportunity does come, make sure it's the right move for both of us, while having that conversation with her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to tell you, I'm 1 for 4, so I have a pretty poor track record of having those conversations. Um, yeah, it's a tough one, especially because I know a lot of people, you know, I guess nowadays there's all this media buzz about Riz and, you know, hookup culture and all this stuff, but like I don't know. I think the people like I think dating is very much a thing that lots of young people should experience and do. it just is substantially more difficult if your goal is something a lot larger than staying and doing a job in your hometown, which I'm not bashing at all. Like, I think that's amazing. The byproduct of playing or trying to play professional sports is that you're gonna have to travel, you're gonna have a wage. Even let's say you and I both got signed for the Seattle Sounders, we're still going to be gone half the year because we have away trips. So it doesn't
Mhm.
change, that doesn't necessarily change kind of the day-to-day life of stuff.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's where it gets a little bit complicated, I think. Yeah, I'm interested too by maybe moving into like so romantic relationships. Well, let's maybe do some action points. So, what are some things that you have implemented into your relationship that you think are important, maybe theoretical or like actually things that you do on a daily basis to help that process be as smooth as possible despite its ups and downs that are inevitable.
It's a great question. Um, Day to day, I mean, it's just a lot of communication, have to talk a lot. Uh, we're on different time zones, so definitely like setting up time for both of us to be able to speak and have a good conversation. Definitely been difficult at first now just because I'm driving around a lot and my schedule is kind of all over the place. So sometimes it can be tough to make sure I'm like sat in one place for the conversation. Um, but yeah, I think it's just like being upfront and as honest with each other as possible is probably the best way to do anything.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's pretty important. I think that's probably the most important thing because it's easy to like, especially with long distance, you can cruise, um, because you're not seeing each other every day and you're talking probably a little bit less than you would if you were both living together. But if you're not being honest with yourself about how you're feeling or how she's feeling, or it can lead to a situation where it's going to implode at some point. So I think just always being as upfront and honest about everything, even if it's painful to do, is probably the best way to go about it. That's how I try to treat it. So what
Yeah.
about for yourself?
I think well, seeing as I haven't done that with a successful relationship as you guys have, it's a little
Mhm.
bit different, I would say. But I definitely think that let's even take my current relationship with my wife. Like she and I, when we're on away trips, when she's away doing stuff, she spent quite a lot of time this past year traveling and was away from New York. And so that was a good kind of indication of the strength of our relationship, I think, as well. But communication is really important. And then also, it's very easy, I think, when you're in a longer term relationship to get complacent when you're having a conversation. So if you're FaceTiming, sometimes, it's I think some people get caught into like scrolling social media or like checking emails when on their computer while they've got the phone like up against the screen while you're talking to your wife or whatever. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
it's so easy and you can just like, uh-huh, yeah, babe. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. But really making when those moments arise, when you do have 10, 15, 20 minutes, an hour or whatever to have a conversation, being really mindful of the type of communication, the attention that you're putting into that relationship and to that conversation, and to really spend the time fully focusing on that because both partners can feel that energy and it gets really sticky if you're not able to just focus on them for that allotted period of time. So I think communication, but also the intentionality behind that type of communication is really important. And it's it's not easy sometimes, but it's 100% worth it, especially if you're in, like you said, you and Ash are in different time zones. You guys only have a certain number of hours you can talk per day that's outside of your responsibilities, her responsibilities, and so being really mindful and being intentional about that time can be really, really helpful. The rest of the time, I tried to do that, but it didn't work out so well because they were still like, I want you to be here and not traveling. And I was like, cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, long distance is probably, I mean, it's unbelievably difficult to be honest. Like it's anyone that tells you it's a easy way to do a relationship is just lying to you. I mean, it's really, really tough. But yeah, no, I think it's really easy to I think everyone will fall into those traps of getting complacent. It's just about, can you, switch back on, lock back in.
Lock
Uh,
back in. Yeah.
so yeah. Um, what about like for you, like managing, this dream, this career in pursuing professional football, and then also like with your friends? Like how did that work for you?
I've got a really extreme view of this, and I don't know how that's gonna, I mean, it's now that I'm sort of in a more chill version of my career, it's definitely, I wouldn't say catching up to me because it's not a negative thing, but it's really showing me who my people are. But forever, my my mindset was always, I'm going to put the energy into the people that I really love and care about in my friend group when I can. And the people that I see at my wedding or later or whatever are the people who actually understood what driving towards that goal meant. Everyone else who called themselves a friend and were like hopping on the train of whatever and who aren't around anymore either demanded too much when I was like, I can't give that to you. Like, that's not how this works. And I've actually had to have many conversations with friends who I don't talk to very much anymore because I was like, I told you this is what I'm doing and I don't owe you anything. And I love you and I care about you, but this is where my life is going. This is what I see for my future. And if you can't get around that, that's not a person I want to have in my life. And so my sort of more extreme view, I would say, is like, if you're a young footballer listening to this, build connections with people. That's extremely important. Surround yourself with like minded, driven individuals, whether they're in football or not. And the people who are also doing cool, big shit and who are also driven will be the most empathetic and understanding of the cool, big shit goal that you have.
Yeah.
Where on the spectrum of that to, I have so many friends that I stay in contact with constantly and I love them and I want to hang out with them all the time. Like, where in that continuum do you stand?
Um, I'd say it's kind of hard to say. Like to be honest, I haven't not been something I've really thought about that much. Like socially, I'm not. I kind of just kind of go with the flow a little bit, and I think staying in touch with people has always been really difficult for me. Like carving out time to make sure I'm getting on FaceTimes and talking to people I love, and I mean, for me, like it's I've met a lot of my friends through soccer, and everybody's at different time zones, different places in their life. And I think that you can like really measure a friendship based on like you just pick up the phone a few months from the last time you spoke, and it's the exact same. Because it's like if you have a friend that you feel like you need to always be in touch with to make sure you keep that friendship, like that's kind of shaky ground for like a friendship. So
Mm.
I'm really lucky. I have an incredible support system of friends who all are very supportive. I'd say the one thing socially that I've had to like give up, that I think when I made the switch into like really taking soccer seriously and like started sacrificing stuff, is like the social like drinking aspect of it. Um, because I think that is for people in the groups I was hanging out with, like that was what people did, and still is something that people do, which is I love to go out and have a few drinks. I think it's a great time, but like I know that also if I have to wake up and train in the morning, like it's gonna affect my performance. And I think there's a lot of people that think, oh no, I play better when I'm hungover or I'm relaxed, but do what works best for you. But for me, like I can't do it. Like I can't go out like and go play like a 3 days later. And so I think that was really hard for me to be able to um like pull away from that a bit with my friends and just like telling them like, oh, I gotta do this. I can't go do that because I've got to train. And I think a lot of people react like you think you're trying to, you're doing this and like you're better, but it's not at all. Like in fact, I'm almost jealous that you're doing this in sometimes, but like
Yeah.
I just have to do it. Um, so that was kind of like the biggest struggle for me. And I think now I'm just trying to like find a balance between not never ever like going out for a few drinks, but then also just balancing out and knowing the right times to do it. Um, And the same thing with like going out and just like seeing people and getting a coffee. It's the exact same thing. Like, because you could just say like, oh, I'm just going to get a coffee or I'm just going to go catch up. But it's like, how many people are you going to go catch up with? And then what are you doing with the rest of your time? Because like if you go catch up with everybody that is hitting you up, like what are you like? What's the rest of your day looking like? What are you not taking care of if you're just constantly meeting up with people? So I think because I want to meet up with people, I want to see people, but you also have to like put yourself first as well and make sure you take care of your stuff you need to take care of. So, and if that, it might hurt their feelings, but if they're your true friend, they'll know they're just taking care of their shit and you got to take care of yours. So, yeah, I'd say like when we talk about relationships in soccer, that's definitely been the biggest challenge. Um, it's just learning how to say no, learning how to compartmentalize a little bit with friendships.
Yeah, translate that now over to immediate family and or like, you know, like immediate and extended blood family.
I think it's the same thing. Like I've missed a lot of weddings. I've missed a lot of different events for my family, and they know like I'm playing soccer. Like I've got something going on. If I didn't have anything I was doing, I'd come and support you or whatever is going on. But like I just can't because I've got this going on. So that's just the reality of it. They've always been really supportive, and yeah. What about yourself?
Same, I would say. I think there's definitely sometimes a semblance of like, we wish you could make it to this, or maybe there's like a preemptive, a year or two before an event, like, hey, it'd be really nice if you were here. And you really, you feel tug on your heartstrings a little bit because you're like, well, that probably would be a really good time and that would be fun, or it would be important, if it's a funeral or something like that. And I've had to shut that part of my brain off because there are things that in moments, I would say it's obviously I'm not an emotionless just blob of flesh. Like this isn't, we don't have to get into the philosophy of it, but I very much believe that there are the goals that you have don't care about the emotions surrounding the actions it takes to get to those goals. So for instance, if I have a goal of starting every game of the 2024 season or the 2023 season or whatever, and a friend, but like, well, I'll just use this example. I had a friend who I hadn't spoken to in a couple of years. We chat on and off, but like we haven't had like a proper conversation in maybe 1 or 2 years. And I got invited to his wedding, and it was in a beautiful location, picturesque, like fly in, fly out, absolutely stunning. And it was like midweek, so I could have made it and I could have gone, but we were in the middle of a season at Flower City and we were in the middle of this thing. And I said no almost immediately. And he was totally understanding because he's also, been a soccer player before and he understands that. But it very much was like my goal of playing or starting or whatever doesn't care that I feel shitty about saying no to somebody. It only cares if I said no or not.
Mm,
And that's where that mindset has really helped through some of this stuff. And yes, there's always a compromise for certain things. There's always things that you have to kind of keep in mind moving forward. But I have found it easy also because I am quite introverted as a person. I don't have, like, when you were talking about the sort of the pull to go out and have a few beers and stuff, like I don't think I've ever once in my life thought to myself that would be a fun thing to do ever.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like it'll be interesting to the listener too to have like, two different people on sort of opposite ends of the introverted extroverted spectrum, because I genuinely like don't care. Like I get invited to parties and stuff and whatever and I'm just like, nah. And people are like, "Oh, but it'll be so fun." Nah, don't care. Like whatever. It's not going to do anything for me.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like I've started being more like that a little bit, and I have to like force myself to be more extroverted,
yeah.
like in a way, because I think for me at least, like there's a certain level of it where I'm like, okay, I think it would be good to go get human contact, like to go talk to people, like Like at a certain point, and I think, and I've seen it a lot with people when they, start doing things that they love, like friends that are, going into like these different really competitive fields and they're these different, high stress environments and they like totally separate themselves. Um, and I feel like I've kind of done the same thing too. Like I know what I want to do and I'm just like throwing everything I can at it. So I can't go, slam a couple beers because I gotta like wake up in the morning and take care of my shit. So like, but then also like knowing like, okay, I probably could slam a couple beers and I'll be okay. Like I'm gonna do it and go see a couple friends and responsibly slam a couple beers. I should preface that, like not like being an absolute moron, but like, go out, like see a couple friends, like laugh a little bit. And then it also kind of like helps me reset. It's like, okay, I don't need to do that again for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody's got a different methodology to it as well. And honestly, like you could talk to me a year from now and I'll be like, I'm slamming beers way more. Maybe I'm slamming beers way less. I have no idea. I think it's all about like figuring out what works best for you, which I'm still trying to figure out what my like best direction is for the best version of myself.
Yeah, and I think this is actually an interesting segue to one of the exceptions or asterisks to the you have to make sacrifices with family and friends in order to achieve something extraordinary like playing professional soccer, which is when you move alone without anyone else to a foreign country to play soccer, it is, in my opinion, it is obligatory for you to get out and go do stuff with community people, whether that's soccer friends, whether that's you go and join I don't know, a billiards club, like whatever your thing is, go and do that, or go hang out with your buddies on the soccer team or whatever, because I do think that that sort of social integration is really important when a lifestyle like you're living right now, which is long distance relationship, you're living probably 40 minutes away from Newcastle, you're, kind of in the middle of nowhere. That can be extraordinarily lonely sometimes. I've been
Yeah.
there. When I played in Denmark, that was me. When I got to Australia, I had a moment like that where I was like, holy shit, I am alone. And there is no one here to save me. Like
Yeah.
zero. I am doing this thing that I think is what I want to be doing. And it is, I literally have no one to go to. And obviously that's bullshit because you have friends and family to talk to, but that's, picking up the phone and saying, yo, Angelo, I'm struggling a bunch. I'm alone. I'm doing this is very different to you and I like being in person with each other on the piss or something. Like that's
Yeah.
very different. And so that's where I think that exception comes in, is when you are living a very monkish lifestyle.
Definitely. Very well said. I mean, I think it sneaks up on you when you get really lonely. And it happened to me in Rochester, which is funny too, because it's like you've got all these amazing people around you, but it's like when you move to a new place and you're in a new environment, and in my case, I was living in like a shack pretty much. Uh if my landlord's watching, she probably wouldn't appreciate that. But I was literally living in like a shack in downtown Rochester. And so like you definitely like will sneak up on you like, damn, like I'm really like putting it all on the line for this, and it's not as easy. Just, I mean, maybe for some people it is, but to pick up the phone and like call somebody, make yourself really vulnerable and say like, hey, I'm not doing well right now. Like I'm down bad. I'm in a shack in Rochester, or I'm in a farm in Australia, and like I'm really going through it. So yeah, I think that's and I think when teams have the availability to when teams have access to something that can track something like that, it'll be really helpful for players as well. Um, but I think,
Shameless
it's
plug.
yeah, and I was gonna say
Race app coming soon.
uh, I think it's gonna be really helpful for players, especially guys like imports, as they call the people that come in from Australia, because it can be like a total culture shift. Luckily, I've had like the most supportive group here with like the team. Everybody's been amazing, taking me out, taking me to go do different activities. Like,
Mhm.
really can't ask for anyone better. And even people that are on other teams, like, and so I'm been like overwhelmed with how friendly and welcoming everybody's been. But like you still come back to like an empty apartment in the middle of nowhere, and it can take a toll on you.
And it
Um,
helps that Australians speak English, kind of.
oh, massive difference,
Yeah.
massive difference. Because I remember when I was 16, I went to Madrid for a year, and I remember that was like I mean, I barely even spawned at that point, and I'm like trying to communicate. All of my everybody that I went to school with only spoke Spanish. So like that is like really being on your own as well. And that is like guys, when they talk about going to like Latvia, Estonia, like going to like Eastern European countries, oh my gosh, like that must be, that you definitely have to find a lot of different ways of like, you know, keeping up on your own mental well-being. Because that can be an extremely big task.
Well, and that's at the youth level, right? Like that now we're talking, that can be extraordinarily difficult for guys who are in pre-college age or pre-university age. And yet you see it at the top level. I mean, the best example that I grew up with was Alexander Pato, who was extraordinarily gifted, like one of the most gifted Brazilian players to ever grace this earth. And yet he played 1 season or 2 seasons in Milan at AC Milan when they were gods in that team. And then guess why he went home? Not because of injury, not because of anything else. It's because he missed his family. And
Yeah.
that's a player who ended up playing the rest of his career in Brazil because he just he was like, I'm not going to sacrifice the friends and family I have for this footballing dream. And yes, of course, he's like the upper echelon of footballers. But that same sacrifice or that same conundrum is made by us every day, right? It's
Mhm.
made by, you know, you're a great example of this because you're away from, at least I've got my wife here and like she's got a whole friends and family who I can sort of integrate in naturally, but like you're like away from everything.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I'm lucky I've had some experience with it before. Um, but yeah, I think I really enjoy being alone as well. So I think there is kind of a contrast to it because I remember when I was in Seattle, I went back home for the holidays and I was like, I need to be alone for like months. And now I've got my wish. So uh that's kind of what can happen. But yeah, I think especially for younger players, that's something that people don't talk about as much as, especially when you have this huge goal that you're trying to accomplish. That's like, it's never going to stop being like, no matter what, even if you achieve like what your vision board or whatever you got, something up there, like you're still going to have that hunger for the next thing. And so I think maybe if, a game doesn't go well or this doesn't happen or whatever on the field, like, and then you come back to an empty apartment, like that's when it can get really tough. Really, really tough.
What are action items or mechanisms that you use to self-soothe
It's a
other
good
than
question.
getting on the piss?
Yeah. No, I try to alcohol is an important topic, I think, to talk about because I think especially in soccer, there's a huge culture with drinking. And it's kind of like hidden a little bit. Like you see Rooney come out and talk about how he was blacking out like on 3-day weekends and stuff like that. And I think even at the lower levels, it's rampant, and people know if they play. And you talk to the guys who played like 20 years ago, it was way worse. And if you talk to guys who played 20 years before that, they were drinking like after every training session. I don't know what it is, like soccer and alcohol are like very linked. Um, but for me, like I try to be really like conscient of my alcohol consumption. So like if I'm gonna drink, it's not like I'm not feeling good or I'm not gonna pick up a drink. Like it has to be very calculated for me. Um, so for me, I think having something that you're passionate about outside of soccer is really important. So whether that be a business or playing the guitar or something like that, like having another passion is something that can be a great way to you know, because you have a lot of free time. That can be something that takes up a bit more of your time. Something else you can put your energy into that's not necessarily gonna like tire out your legs would be ideal for a soccer player. But you know, everybody's got Ben Foster was a cyclist while he was playing, so I guess that's one thing. For me, I really enjoy reading, and you know, like I think reading and texts that make you question, you know, things and make you want to reflect on your life are really helpful, especially if you're going through a dark time or a tough time. I think that can be another amazing thing is like reading and having access to that. Um, I think having a routine is really important as well. If you have a good routine in the morning, routine in the evening, which is something I'm working on, um, can kind of eliminate those times where you're like, maybe you're scrolling on Instagram, you're scrolling and you're feeling bad and stuff, but it's like, if you have your routine, it's like, well, I have to go to bed because I have to wake up at this time. It kind of takes that away. Um, but it kind of circles back to what we talked about is like being really honest with yourself about what you need. And I think that that's kind of like the heart of it. Because maybe there's sometimes where you're doing your routine, you're reading stuff and you're meditating, you're doing whatever else for your mental health, but you're like, I'm really fucked up. Like I need some help. Like that's where you should reach out to somebody or you know, have someone that you can talk to because you can read as much as you want, but it's like if you need to like talk about something or you need to like you have human contact, like you need to be honest with yourself. So I'd say those were probably my three: routine, uh, you know, reading and like stuff that challenges you mentally, and your beliefs. That's a personal one. And then I forgot what my first one was.
At philosophy major.
Yeah, I forgot what the first one was, but those are my three. What about you?
It's a good question. I think the biggest thing for me was number one, deciding what the priority was. So priority is singular, right? So there's only one that you can have. And for some people, there's a shift in, okay, my relationship is now my priority, or my family is now my priority, or whatever it is. Football has been my priority for a very, very long time, for like 2 decades now, pretty much. And so once you've established what the priority is, it's about making decisions that are going to take you closer to, not further from that goal. And so evaluating what's going to help me if I come home and I'm feeling really lonely because I said no to a party after a game because I know I got to get up the next morning and I want to work on my craft or I want to do something like that, my first instinct is to potentially talk to my wife. That's a great one. So have a conversation with my wife about it. Um, if she's not around, then it's diving into the thing that I find super, super interesting outside of football. I think I would share that as like my number one, similar to what you had said about finding that external passion
Mm.
and discovering, and this is going to be a longer conversation later about how do we how do we detach who we are as a person from the things we do and understanding who you are, who you want to be, what that 80-year-old self wants to look back on their life and say, that was a great decision, nice work. So you can always have that sort of in the back of your mind. But as far as battling loneliness, I feel like for those of once you've established that you are who you are, football is something that you do, but there's probably a couple other things that you do. For me, it's business. For me, it's the YouTube channel. For me, it's I really enjoy music. I enjoy reading. I enjoy quite a lot of other football boots. So like doing research on football boots or watching maybe it's a video game. Like you kind of just say, you know what, I'm just going to play video games for an hour. Like this is going to feel nice and it's going to sort of take my brain away from this stuff. Whatever that coping mechanism is, again, so long as it's taking you either neutral or closer to that goal, not further away. So I'm not going out and getting drunk, or I'm not, you know, trying to relax by smoking a spliff or something. Like all those things are going to take me further away from the goal. So that's the biggest thing for me is like finding that other thing that makes your life really exciting and you get stoked about.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like a lot of the stuff with loneliness can come down to that internal pressure that we put on ourselves, that internal need to um like to want to reach that goal. So I think that's why like alcohol, drugs, whatever other sort of vices you can use to kind of distance yourself from that is why they're so popular. So it's like I didn't play very well or I made this mistake, my team lost the game because of it. Like I want to go drink, I want to go smoke, I want to go, you know, do whatever. I want to go gamble. I think that's kind of like the root cause of it is because, we feel inadequate because of what happened. So I think when you have something else like what you're talking about, music, boots, whatever that may be, and I think that's something I'm still want to learn. Like I want to find something else outside of just work necessarily, that I can like kind of relax into or have it as an outlet. Because like you come home from a game and you're jacked up and you're angry or whatever, like you don't really want to read, you know, like
As
so
noble of a pursuit as that might be, it's really difficult. I've tried
yeah,
to do
good
it.
luck, honestly. Like, hats off to you if you can come home after a game and read. But like, I think finding something and that you can kind of like put your energy into outside of work, outside of soccer, can be something really beneficial.
I think something that you can bring with you as well, because battling that balance between family life and saying no to things and being solo most of the time and sort of in your own pursuit of excellence on the pitch is is really important. So bring something with you, i.e., find something that you can bring with you along the journey that will help in those moments. That's going to be make a positive impact on your life moving forward, even if just to save yourself from spiraling into a I'm lonely, I'm depressed, I'm this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that reminding yourself of those other things that you can do besides doing destructive behaviors can be a good thing, um, for people that, tend to have that tendency to want to like spin off into doing other things when things aren't going right. And I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, bottom line here, when we talk about all these, balancing life and football and everything, is to live an extraordinary life, you can't live a balanced life, period. That's my belief. You can't. It's not possible because you're gonna playing professional football or growing toward or collegiate football for that matter, collegiate soccer, getting to the next level, everything further and further, higher and higher in your career is going to require you to have a bunch of things be disciplined and say no to a bunch of things that are going to seem from the outside like you live a completely unbalanced life. People are like, bro, you don't have any work life balance or work life, soccer life balance or whatever. No, because a work life balance is mediocre. Like it's not
Mhm.
going to get me anywhere in my football career. And
Yeah.
so I'm willing to pay the consequence of living an unbalanced life in order to do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
And that's what accepting is going to be, I think, really helpful for balancing that family life. And moving forward, for a lot of people who really struggle with that balance, it's, you know what? If you decide that balancing your family life is something you're not willing to do, like you absolutely have to see them all the time or whatever, that's okay. Just don't judge yourself based on it. And also, the consequence of that is you probably won't get where dream of being in the football world. It just doesn't, like, the percentage of people who can actually manage both of those things is like close to zero.
Yeah.
And that's just the
100%.
reality.
Yeah. I think I read a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And one of the really important things that I took away is that like, because I was always going like, am I overdoing it? Am I underdoing it? What's going on? It's like you set aside that work for your duty of what you need to do to accomplish whatever it is that you're going after. And then after that, you just leave it. So it's like you have this time allotted. I'm putting all my energy into whatever I need to do to accomplish it. When it's done, I'm not gonna like keep looking back on game film. I'm already gonna be watching the game film in this allotted amount of time or whatever that is. Because I think the thing is with people that are like perfectionists or they, are really, really going for something that's like this really big goal, is that maybe you start doing these things throughout the whole day, but you're kind of like half-heartedly doing it. So like I'm going out and like doing a session in the evening, but I'm like really sore because I should have done it earlier. And I'm like, not really in the groove rather than being like, this is my concentrated time block for this. And maybe it's 4 hours, maybe it's 2 hours, whatever it is. And I'm going all in on it. I'm doing my, you know, game film. I'm doing all the soccer things in this time, or maybe it's like this and like this. But then after that, you walk away from it, and it's not like in your head for the rest of the day, if possible. Um, but that's something I've tried to implement, and I think it makes a huge difference in terms of like how you feel throughout the day, rather than feeling constricted because you feel like you're not doing enough.
That's a wonderful action item.
Mhm.
Wonderful action item. Yeah. Be disciplined with your time, allot that particular time, and then after that, let it be.
Yeah. And then you're on to the next thing. Maybe that's work. Maybe that's something else that you're passionate about that you need to block out. So it's not like just you know, float around the rest of the day. Or maybe you could float around, whatever you want to do. But I think it just helps you understand this. What I'm doing right now is like I need to do this, but it's not gonna dictate the rest of my day of who I am.
Any final thoughts on balancing or living an unbalanced work life balance or soccer life balance?
Um I think I think this has been kind of a theme, but it's kind of you just have to go with your gut. Like if you have to go with your gut about is this too much? Do I need to go out and get human interaction? Do I need to go out and do this? Or maybe do I need to do more for business, for school, for soccer, maybe? Um, but I think that if you are always looking around at what other people are doing, that doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. Just because Kobe's doing 12 hours a day in the gym, if you go out 12 hours a day in the field, you're gonna have a pulled groin. I promise you. So like just listen to your body, listen to yourself about what you need, and then put those actionable items into place so that you can uh do it effectively.
Yeah. My final thought would be you are the only one who knows what's important to you. So
Mhm.
live according to live according to that gut feeling and that reaction because you're the only one. And people will probably judge you for your decisions, but it doesn't matter because you're the one who has to live with those decisions. So, um, I think again, romantic relationships extraordinarily difficult but possible. I think family relationships, depending on your relationship with your family, obviously everyone's got a different one, but it's hopefully they would be supportive of this line of work and this, this pursuit that a lot of us and probably most of the people listening to this will have at some point in their life. And then for social relationships, it's, hey guys, I love you all. I want to hang out with you all. There's a time and a place that we will do that. And most of the time it's not now.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And that's the way you move up in becoming excellent at football, which is what I think most people listening to this will want to do at some point in their career at whatever level they're at. So um, that's going to wrap up today's episode. I appreciate you guys for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow us at Brace App on all the platforms. We've got X or Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. We will see you guys in the next one. Take care.